There were moments when your silence screamed louder than any argument you could have made. When people misunderstood you, mocked your stillness, or thought your quiet meant defeat, God saw it as obedience. The hardest test is not always about doing, but about waiting. It's about restraining your flesh when your soul wants to explain itself. Chosen one, you endured the weight of divine silence without breaking your spiritual posture, and that's what separated you from those who folded under pressure. You see, when God is silent, he is not absent. His silence is his strategy. He was molding you in hidden chambers, purifying your motives and sharpening your discernment. What you thought was isolation was actually consecration. You didn't chase validation, you chose alignment. That choice alone echoed in the heavens as a declaration of trust. You didn't fail in your silence, you passed through it. Every chosen one faces the temptation to take shortcuts. You had chances to manipulate outcomes, to defend yourself publicly, or to force timing to favor you, but you didn't. That restraint didn't come from weakness. It came from divine wisdom. You trusted that what was meant for you couldn't be taken by man, only delayed by disobedience. And so you waited, not passively, but faithfully. You kept walking even when the road was invisible. In those seasons, the enemy whispered, "Do it your way, prove them wrong." But you refused to let ego guide what only the Spirit could finish. You resisted shortcuts because you knew that anything obtained outside of divine order becomes a curse in disguise. The test wasn't about opportunity, it was about obedience. You passed because you chose surrender over self-will. You took the long road, and heaven took notice. Nobody saw the tears you cried after praying and seeing nothing move. Nobody clapped when you forgave those who betrayed you. But those unseen victories built your crown. Chosen one, you passed the test not in the spotlight, but in the shadows. The unseen obedience you showed behind closed doors is what qualified you for open-door blessings. There's a spiritual law. What is done in secret is rewarded in the open. That's why your reward will not look ordinary. People will wonder how you rose so fast, but they didn't see the fire you walked through without burning out. Every no you received was God protecting your yes. You won battles no one even knew you were fighting. The refining season was not meant to destroy you, but to expose the gold within you. Every heartbreak, every rejection, every delay, it wasn't random. It was a controlled fire sent by God to separate what was temporary from what was eternal. When you cried and asked, "Why me?" heaven responded, "Because you carry something too sacred to be rushed." The pain purified your motives, your perspective, and your heart. You began to love without attachment, give without recognition, and serve without applause. That's refinement. That's royalty being forged in divine flames. Many people break under pressure because they see fire as punishment, but you saw it as preparation. You allowed the heat to shape you instead of running from it. You started to see that the things God took away weren't losses. They were layers being peeled off to reveal purpose. Through the fire, you learned to find peace in surrender and strength in silence. You didn't fight to escape, you fought to evolve. That's why what destroyed others built you. You came out of the fire shining, not scarred. While you thought no one was watching, heaven was observing every detail of your response. Angels recorded your resilience, your patience, your tears, and your worship through pain. God wasn't testing you to humiliate you. He was showcasing your loyalty to the unseen realm. Every time you chose forgiveness over revenge, faith over fear, and trust over panic, a divine record was kept. You passed tests that others didn't even realize were tests. Your trials were not random, they were examinations of your character. Heaven needed to know if you could be trusted with the assignment waiting on the other side. When you chose humility in moments that screamed for pride, that was your spiritual promotion. When you said, "Let it be," instead of "Why me?" that was your elevation. Heaven doesn't reward performance, it rewards alignment. And you, chosen one, stayed aligned even when alignment hurt. God saw everything, and he approved you. There came a day when you finally stopped wrestling with God. You stopped asking for clarity and started trusting his character. That's when things shifted. You realize that faith isn't about understanding the plan, it's about trusting the planner. When you released control, your spirit found peace. The storm didn't stop immediately, but your fear did. That was the day you truly passed the hardest test. For so long, you thought surrender meant losing, but now you see it's where power begins. The enemy wanted you to believe that silence meant defeat, but you discovered it was your spiritual weapon. By surrendering your timeline, your expectations, and your pride, you allowed God to take his rightful place in your life. You stopped trying to fix things and let divine order flow freely. That single act of submission was your breakthrough in disguise. Surrender didn't break you, it birthed you. Chosen one, you thought your isolation was punishment, but it was initiation. God pulled you away from certain people, places, and patterns not to hurt you, but to reintroduce you to your true self. While others were busy building platforms, you were being built in private. That season of separation was your divine classroom, the space where heaven stripped you of noise so you could hear the whisper of your calling. You didn't lose friends, you gained clarity. You didn't lose opportunities, you gained authority. Loneliness taught you what crowds could never teach. It revealed your real identity, not the one shaped by others' opinions, but the one rooted in divine truth. In that quiet room of solitude, God showed you that being chosen often means being isolated. Your spirit matured because you stopped seeking company and started seeking communion. While the world thought you were forgotten, heaven was whispering your name in rooms you couldn't yet enter. That's what isolation does, it positions before it promotes. You weren't abandoned, you were anointed in silence. Every act of obedience, no matter how small, planted a seed in the unseen. You may not have seen the fruit immediately, but God was building your harvest behind the veil. When you said no to shortcuts, yes to purity, and wait instead of rush, you were sowing trust into eternity. Obedience is not glamorous. It's lonely, misunderstood, and often painful. But the chosen ones know that obedience is the currency of heaven. There were times you wanted to rebel, to walk away, to take matters into your own hands, but your spirit wouldn't let you. That was the Holy Spirit strengthening your endurance. You obeyed when it made no sense. You stayed when it hurt. You believed when hope felt impossible. Those decisions became your silent prayers, your invisible offerings, your spiritual credentials. Now, as your harvest season approaches, heaven is releasing what your obedience prepared. You didn't miss your moment. Your obedience created it. Something shifted in the unseen when you passed God's test. What once resisted you began to make way for you. The warfare lessened, not because the enemy stopped attacking, but because your spirit stopped reacting. You became unshakable. You learned to discern energy without absorbing it. You realized that peace is not the absence of war, it's authority in the middle of it. That's when the heavens opened over you. The spiritual atmosphere around you started to recognize your authority. People began to feel your energy before you even spoke. Environments started to respond to your presence because your frequency had been refined through pain. You are no longer the same. Your light carries weight now. You don't need to chase what's yours. It's magnetized to your vibration. That's what happens when a chosen one passes their divine test. The universe begins to align in response. You've entered a new spiritual frequency. Stay there. When you passed that test, there was a divine exchange in the spirit. What you lost in tears, you gained in wisdom. What you surrendered in pain, you received back in power. God never takes without giving something greater in return. Every disappointment was an investment. Every delay was a deposit into your spiritual account. You may not have realized it at first, but heaven was shifting weight from your shoulders to your crown. You were being emptied of what couldn't go with you into your next level. That exchange was not visible to the natural eye, but everything about you changed after it. The way you speak, think, love, and even wait, all of it carries maturity. The version of you that entered the trial could not have handled the blessing that's now approaching. You didn't just survive the test, you were transformed by it. God didn't change your environment first, He changed your energy, your mindset, your spirit. That's the exchange that marks the chosen, elevation through purification. You lost what was temporary, but gained what is eternal. When you pass the hardest tests, you gain spiritual rank. You become a threat to darkness not by loudness but by stillness. The enemy no longer finds access where fear used to live. You've developed spiritual immunity. Now your peace is your weapon, your silence is your strategy, and your faith is your fortress. Every time the enemy tries to trigger old wounds, your new strength responds differently. You don't break anymore, you bless. You don't react, you release. This new level of authority means that you are now carrying light that exposes deception. You can sense manipulation before it speaks, and you can see truth beyond illusion. The same attacks that used to destroy you now train you. That's divine mastery. Chosen one, your discernment has become razor sharp, and your soul has learned balance in warfare. You don't fight for peace anymore, you fight from peace. That is your new divine authority. Darkness recognizes you now. At first, the people around you may not understand what happened. Some will sense something different about you but won't be able to name it. Others will distance themselves because your new frequency exposes their old one. Don't take it personally. Spiritual transformation always shifts your tribe. Those who are meant to walk with you in this next chapter will be aligned by destiny, not by history. What's changing is not just your environment, but your energy. Your aura speaks before your words do now. People will start to feel peace when you enter the room, conviction when you speak truth, and inspiration when you move in purpose. You don't have to prove you've grown, your presence does it for you. Some will honor it and some will resist it, but all will recognize it. Your life itself has become a message that obedience pays off and surrender transforms. You are walking evidence that change is divine. There was a reason why nothing worked before, chosen one. It wasn't that you weren't ready, it was that the time wasn't right. Divine timing is heaven's fingerprint on destiny. When you tried to make things happen prematurely, doors stayed shut to protect you. But now, after you've passed God's hardest test, the divine clock has struck alignment. What once seemed delayed is about to appear suddenly. You had to mature enough to handle what you've been praying for. The beauty of divine timing is that it redeems everything you thought was wasted. Every closed door becomes proof that heaven was setting the stage. The people who left had to leave so the right ones could find their way in. The opportunities you missed were never yours, they were placeholders for what's truly aligned. This season, you'll look back and see that God was not late. He was strategic. He needed to grow your patience before he could release your promise. God's wait was never a no, it was a not yet. You thought you lost years, relationships, dreams, but none of it disappeared. It was being refined in another realm. Now the restoration begins. The same God who tested you is the one orchestrating your comeback. He is returning everything in divine sequence, not as you left it, but better than it was before. Every delay became an investment, every rejection a redirection. You're about to see why he allowed it all to fall apart. This restoration won't be silent. It will be visible. The same people who saw you break will witness you being rebuilt. But this time, your blessings will come without sorrow, your peace will come without fear, and your victories will come without compromise. You'll receive in one season what you labored for in many. That's how God redeems his chosen ones, quickly, completely, and undeniably. You're not getting back what was lost, you're getting back multiplied. You didn't chase the crown, yet heaven placed it upon you. It's not made of gold or jewels, but of wisdom, compassion, and divine authority. You earned it not through perfection, but through perseverance. Every time you forgave when you wanted revenge, every time you stayed when you wanted to run, heaven added another jewel to your unseen crown. Now your spirit carries weight, and your presence commands respect, not through pride but through purity. This crown is not about superiority, it's about stewardship. You've been chosen to lead not because you're flawless but because you're faithful. You've proven that your heart can handle influence without corruption. That's why God can trust you now. The trials humbled you, the silence trained you, and the victory crowned you. Wear it with grace, not ego, for this crown is not for display but for duty. You've been crowned in heaven, before being recognized on earth. You've entered a realm of peace that the world cannot explain. It's not that your problems vanished, it's that your spirit no longer bows to them. You've learned that true peace isn't the absence of noise, but the ability to remain still within it. That's the prize for those who pass the hardest tests. You've stopped depending on external validation and started drawing strength from within. Now, even chaos respects your calm. Heaven has clothed you in serenity, and it radiates through your presence. This peace is not passive, it's powerful. It disarms conflict, quiets storms, and attracts clarity. When you walk in divine peace, your enemies lose access because they can no longer provoke your reaction. The same things that once drained you now roll off your spirit effortlessly. You are no longer easily moved because your foundation is divine, not emotional. That's what God was building in the silence, an unshakable core that no darkness can penetrate. You've become the calm in other people's storm. There's a shift happening, chosen one. The same tables where you were once ignored are the tables where you'll soon be honored. God is flipping the script in your favor, not out of revenge, but revelation. Those who once dismissed you will now need what you carry. The power dynamics are changing because your faith has changed the frequency. You no longer beg for a seat. Heaven is building you your own table. What once seemed unfair will now make divine sense. The turnaround isn't just personal, it's prophetic. You're a living symbol of reversal, proof that humility precedes exaltation. You didn't fight for recognition, you waited for revelation. And now that you're walking in alignment, everything attached to your purpose is magnetizing toward you. When God elevates you, it's not subtle, it's strategic. You're stepping into a divine reversal where everything meant to harm you becomes part of your story of glory. The same stage that broke you will broadcast your breakthrough. Before every elevation, God separates. That's why certain people started fading from your life right before this new chapter began. It wasn't rejection, it was redirection. God had to make room for those who speak your new spiritual language. The people you once needed for validation are no longer necessary for confirmation. Separation hurts, but it's sacred. It's heaven's way of decluttering your destiny so you can rise without resistance. You see, not everyone can breathe at your new altitude. Some connections were divine for a season but toxic for the next. The same voices that once comforted you might now confuse you. That's why God cut ties, not to isolate you but to insulate you. This separation is a sign that your next level has arrived. Don't chase what God has already replaced. Your peace is the evidence of divine alignment. You're not losing people, you're gaining purpose. When the noise finally stopped, you could hear what God had been saying all along. The chaos wasn't meant to confuse you, it was meant to clear away the voices that drowned out truth. In that stillness, you began to see everything differently. The lessons behind losses, the wisdom behind waiting, the love behind discipline. Clarity is the final gift of every divine test. Once you stop fighting the process, you start understanding the purpose. Now you notice that what once looked like punishment was really preparation. The job that ended pushed you toward your calling. The friendship that broke made room for authentic connection. The door that closed forced you to find the one heaven built. Clarity doesn't always shout, it whispers. It tells you that the plan was perfect even when it was painful. That's how you know you've passed, when you can thank God for the storm instead of resenting it. Your vision is no longer blurred by fear. Every level of revelation brings with it a new level of responsibility. Now that you see clearly, you must carry that light with integrity. People will look to you for guidance, for peace, for proof that faith works. That's not pressure, that's purpose. The weight you feel is the mark of leadership. Heaven trusts you with influence because you've shown that you don't misuse it. You've learned that being chosen means being accountable. Use your light wisely. Speak when your words heal, stay silent when your words could wound. The same strength that helped you survive is now meant to help others rise. Every story you've lived carries a message, and every scar is now a map for someone else. Carry it gently. Remember, the light you hold is borrowed from the source. Keep it pure, keep it humble, keep it kind. You've become a steward of illumination. After the testing, after the silence, after the refining fire, joy comes back differently. It's quieter, deeper, no longer dependent on circumstances. You start to laugh again, not because everything is perfect, but because you finally feel safe in God's timing. That's the kind of joy that can't be stolen. It's built on trust. It springs from the same ground where tears once fell. You don't need big moments to feel it anymore. Even small blessings make your spirit sing. Joy after pain feels sacred. It's the reward for endurance, the evidence that the night didn't win. It fills the spaces that sorrow hollowed out and turns them into wells of gratitude. This joy carries healing. It restores color to the parts of your life that grief had drained. That's what God promised all along: beauty for ashes, laughter after lament. You're smiling again, and heaven is smiling with you. Chosen one, you've reached the end of a divine cycle. The test has been completed. Everything you went through was sacred training for where you are now. The sleepless nights, the unanswered prayers, the heartbreaks that felt unbearable, they were all ingredients of your transformation. You've been refined, redefined, and realigned with heaven's original blueprint for your life. You no longer move from fear or validation. You move from divine knowing. The very storms that once threatened to drown you have now become the waters that carried you to shore. God didn't test you to see you break. He tested you to see you bloom. Every trial exposed your inner strength. Every silence deepened your faith. Every delay purified your motives. You are no longer who you used to be. You are wiser, lighter, stronger, and spiritually anchored. The hardest test wasn't meant to prove your worth to God, but to reveal God's presence within you. You didn't pass through effort. You passed through surrender. You didn't pass through striving. You passed through trust. The test is over and the revelation is clear. You were never being punished. You were being prepared. Chosen one, lift your head. You've crossed a spiritual threshold few ever reach. What's ahead of you is no longer resistance, it's recognition. The heavens have recorded your endurance, and the earth is about to echo your reward. You are walking into a new season where peace is your portion, wisdom is your weapon, and purpose is your path. You don't have to chase what's yours. It's already in divine motion, moving toward you in perfect timing. Let this message be your confirmation. You passed the hardest test the right way. You didn't lose yourself in the fire. You found your higher self through it. You are living proof that obedience is never in vain and that God never forgets the faithful. So breathe deeply, walk boldly, and shine quietly. The crown is yours, the chapter is new, and heaven is proud. If this message spoke to your spirit, comment, "I receive it" below and share what part touched your heart the most. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and join the Awakened Era family, where chosen ones rise, heal, and walk in divine truth together. Your story isn't over, it's only beginning.